Hi, I'm Dawn and this is where Shabby meets Bling. I have thrifted some newer items and some vintage items, and I am going to transform them tonight into something beautiful for my spring decor.
This is a Shabby Chic Spring. I would like to thank our host, Jody from Jody at Southern Seasons, and my co-hosts, Becky from Kinda Shabby and Annie from Crafting with Indie Annie Jones. You're going to find the links to their channels and this playlist in my description box below. My story starts here with these two enormous salt and pepper shakers. Yeah, but they're not salt and pepper shakers. These are vintage Parmesan cheese shakers. They are mid-century modern. They're from a company called Nobler, and they are ceramic. But look at the shape of them. Aren't they absolutely gorgeous? I picked up mine for $1.49 each. They go for right around $12 to $15 each. So I did get a very good deal. I don't see these around very often. Never. I've never seen these around. And the shape alone made me pick them up and purchase them. I did purchase them at Goodwill. The very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to drill some more holes in them. There's not enough holes. What if I want to shake out a lot of cheese? I love cheese, right? Okay, so no. The shape of these made me think lantern. I think these are absolutely beautiful. And how about a couple of gorgeous spring lanterns to take outside once the weather turns? So I am drilling a couple of holes on either side of both of my little shakers to allow a handle to be added. I first removed the little rubber stopper from the bottom of the cheese shaker. Keep this thing in mind, it's going to be very important down the road. But first and foremost, I want to elevate my little shakers. They need more height, they need more dimension. I will be using two sizes of wood pile rounds to make this happen. I'm going to place one on top of the other to get the look and the proportion I feel is necessary. You can see how much better that looks already, especially if it was all the same color. The problem now is how do I make this not permanent? Because the light I put inside has to be accessible. I need to get at that light so I can turn it on and off. I'm going to add a small wood round to fill the cavity underneath the shaker, and then I'm going to set the little stopper on there so that I can just push down and then everything would be attached. Now, if all the woods and that little stopper were attached, I could just push it down and it would hold. That would be a lot of stress on that little stopper, which is hollow inside. So I'm going to take part of this dowel rod and cut just a little sliver to fill that void to make it nice and firm. Then I'm going to cut another piece of the dowel to act as a candlestick, which will protrude up into the shaker. Then on top of the dowel, I will add one of these little candle cups from wood pile. This will be just wood glued together. And then I'm going to add my itty bitty teeny tiny little light. I picked up these lights on Amazon. I'll leave all the details down in my description box, but look how cute these are. You just turn them on and it sits right inside that little candle cup, and then this will be right on the tippy top of my candlestick and it will go inside my lantern. I'm making a handle out of wire and wood, and the little wood part is going to be composed of two more of these little candle cups and one of these little wood balls that came in my big wood pile container that I absolutely love. I use these all the time, and I will just wood glue these together just like that. The rest of it will be wire. I feel there really aren't enough holes in this thing to be a lantern, so I'm going to add quite a few more to each of my little shakers. I am just eyeing where I want to put my new holes and marking that spot with a Sharpie. Now, this ceramic is relatively tough to get through, so I will be using tile bits for the rest of my drilling. And I'm going to show you a little trick to get through curved ceramic that has been glazed. So you can see I have my dots here and I already have some new holes drilled. But to get a really good start on this, start with sandpaper. A fine sandpaper. You just want to mark up that outer glaze. And you hit it and you can see how easy this is going to come off. I am keeping an eye on where my dot was, and I grab a tile bit, a very, very sharp tile bit, and I hold it in place, and I'm just going to turn it. I'm going to take it in my hand and just turn and turn back and forth, back and forth. I want to create a little dent. I want to create a crevice for my drill bit that is going to be going through here, which is also a tile bit, can go through there easier and not slide right off the surface of my shaker. And then you drill. You drill until you get all the way through, and you have to go slow and steady. If you go too fast, you can crack whatever you're trying to drill through. So just take your time and your patience will be rewarded. I have created 8 new holes in each of my little shakers. Now I'm taking those components I told you about, the dowel and the candle cup, and I'm wood gluing them together. These will be attached to the other components I showed you earlier with wood glue and a screw. Now this little candle cup is the one that's going to hold our light up inside our lantern. Once I get them glued, I will clamp them, and then I will set them aside and wait for them to dry. This is the important part. This is the whole thing here, the whole enchilada. I love enchiladas. Oh, so good. This makes sure that I can open and close my lantern to turn my light on and off. I am taking that stopper and I am filling it with wood glue, then adding that little sliver of the dowel I told you about. Now I add it to that tiny little wood round. The rounds I was going to use were too thick, so I had to cut out 2 tiny ones to take their place out of a thinner piece of Luan. I center it and make sure it's glued really well, and then I glue this piece. It's like a little wedding cake all stacked up different sizes. Then I glue this piece to the smaller wood pile, wood round. And then I will set this aside and let this all dry. Once it's dry, I take my drill and I drill a hole right down through the center. Then I flip it over and the hole is small. You can see it right there. So I take my drill and I drill the hole out a little bigger from the bottom side. After this, I will use my countersink to create a divot for my screw. I next clamp my little candlesticks and drill a hole through them and assemble all of these pieces together. Once all these pieces are wood glued and screwed together, I wood glue the bottom of the one smaller wood round and apply it and attach it just with wood glue to the larger wood round. I eyeball it to make sure it's centered and I hold it firmly for a while. Once I'm sure I have it centered, I take my clamps and I clamp it together. One clamp on one side and one on the other. Now to make the wire part of our handle. You can see I've already wood glued together those 2 candle cups and that little wood ball. They have been sitting and drying overnight. So now I am going to do the wire part of our handle. I am straightening out this very sturdy wire, and this is going to become our handle. Once I work out all of the kinks, I feed the wood part onto the wire. I make sure I have enough wire on both sides to complete the little handle. I hold firmly and I bend both sides so they look as close to the same as possible. I cut off the extra, and then I begin to bend the little part that will go inside of my little shaker. Then I bend the opposite side so it has the exact same bend, or as close as possible. I will work with this until I get it exactly the way I want it. And now it's time to paint. One of my favorite parts. I am giving them a thorough coat in French linen. As you well know, French linen is one of my favorite paints. My stash is about gone, but I have been informed there is a very similar color out there to be purchased. French linen is a Hello Hobby chalk paint. I am giving both pieces a thorough coat, and then it will dry, and then I will come back and give it a second coat, and I will be painting all of it, even my little candlestick. I'm even painting the plastic stopper. I don't think it will hold the paint, but for now I want it all to look uniform. That rubber stopper will take wear and tear as I open and close my lantern to light it up. Whether or not that paint lasts, we shall see. And I really don't care. I do, but I don't. And now that my paint is dry, I busted out the podge. It's time to Mod Podge these little candlesticks. I am using a matte Mod Podge, and both candlesticks will get 2 coats. Now to prep our little shakers, and soon we'll be calling them lanterns forever and not shakers anymore. I am lightly sanding these shakers, and then I will paint them. This shaker scruffed up real nice, and she's all ready for paint. Now, when it came to this one became a problem. Well, actually, it became more work. It just became a lot more work. When I was getting the price tag off of it, I used just simple Windex, and it started taking the paint. So when this thing had any kind of moisture on it, the paint started to peel. So I thought, instead of going ahead and putting it through the rigors of scraping with my Windex, I'd soak it in the sink for a while. And guess what happened? This is what happened. Now I have a white Parmesan shaker. You can still see some of the residue that did not come out, and you can see it in the little holes as well. I've also lightly sanded that one, and now we're ready to begin the painting process. I am putting a coat of the podge on both of my shakers, just one coat. I am making sure I hit every little bit of these because I want my paint to really adhere. Anything I paint that seems to have any kind of gloss at all, I feel that a coat of the Mod Podge helps my paint to bond. I am careful not to let any excess Mod Podge build up in our lantern holes. Now French linen paint for our lanterns. They will get 2 coats before the next step. I am adding some high density styrofoam embellishments on both sides of both of my lanterns. Both sides of these embellishments have been coated in Mod Podge and left to dry thoroughly. But now that they're dry, I am using 3-in-1 glue to adhere them onto the front and the back of each lantern. Once I've made sure they're centered and adhered and totally dry, I move on to painting them as well with the French linen chalk paint. They will get a couple of coats, and then I will go back and I will hit any areas that look like they need a little bit more paint. After all my paint is dry, I will give both my lanterns a couple of coats of the matte Mod Podge, and then I will assemble both of these little beauties. Quite recently, I picked up these candlesticks, and you can tell by looking at the disproportionate candlestick to the little candle cup on the top that someone put these together. Now, if it looks familiar, it's because you saw me use part of these in this video. I'll leave the link in the description box below. I picked up these for $1.99 a piece, and every bit of them will get used. I also just recently picked up these. These are beautiful mid-century modern solid wood candlesticks. I grabbed these guys for $2.99 each, and to me it was well worth it. Step 1 is to disassemble my little glass candle cups off of the top of this candlestick. The candle cups were thoroughly glued to the candlesticks. Since it appeared to me to be a form of hot glue, I ran these things under hot water and my little glass candle cups popped right off. After the separation of the candle cup and the candlestick, I got all of the excess glue off of each of these cute little cups. Aren't they pretty? They're so pretty. Back to the other candlesticks, those beauties, those mid-century modern beauties. What I'm going to do with these before I do anything else is I'm going to take my drill and I am going to drill right down through that little divot. Do you see that little hole that's already just waiting for me? Because I am going to have to attach something to the top of these candlesticks, and this already gives me a pre-made guide. I drill a little hole in each and every one of them, and then I bust out my coping saw, because we gotta cope with this situation. If I didn't mention it before, all 7 candlesticks were purchased at Goodwill. Because the top and the bottom are not the same diameter, I elevate the top, so it is easier for me to cut it. And I am just using the coping saw to cut right down and around the top and where the actual stick come together. As I was sawing, I realized that the top, that little cup part, was becoming loose. So I decided just to stop sawing and pull it off. It left me with a little dowel hanging out the top. How lucky for me. And I already had a nice hole drilled right down into it. At my local thrift store, I picked up this bag of wood balls for $1. Some of them already have little cavities bored into them, which is amazing because they fit perfect. I mean, the luck, go figure. They fit perfect over those dowels that are at the top of my candlestick. These wood balls are going to be the base of my flower. I am putting them into my clamp, clamping them nice and tight, and I'm going to be drilling a hole down through all 3 of these, and I'm going to do them at different angles so no 2 flower will be the same. The flower cup, that glass cup from earlier, will be attached down through the wood ball and then into the candlestick. That candlestick acting as the stem of our flower. I give all 3 candlesticks a very good sanding, which is pretty easy. These things are old and the finish is pretty worn. So a quick sanding and then we move on. Now I wood glue a piece of wire and that wood ball onto the top of what is going to be our stem. The wire is worked down through the candlestick as well as the wood ball. I'm leaving a couple of extra inches of wire hanging out because I don't know exactly how much I'm going to need yet. So better safe than sorry. You can't put it back once you cut it. Once my wood glue is dry, we paint. I got to paint again. This is a Decor Americana. The color is celery green, and I think it is absolutely gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. So once I get a nice coat on all of these, I let them dry, and I come back and I hit them a second time. These are brass leaves. I have an entire box of metal leaves and flowers. These I picked up for $2. I've already cut them apart and I've used my leaves and flowers on other projects. I'll leave a link to this video in the description box so you can check it out. I am going to be adding some of these leaves to our flower stem. I need to create a little cavity to slide my little leaf stem down into the flower stem, so I used my drill once again. As you can see, to make things easier, I have taken my candlestick and I have put it into my clamps. I've got 2 clamps, one going each direction, and you can see how that is just going to slide right on in there. When it's all said and done, I don't even glue these in. They fit in there so well. I've already predetermined how many leaves each flower stem will get. So I go ahead and drill corresponding holes for those leaves to fit in. And I put them at different levels and on different sides, once again for variety. But before I put the leaves into the stems, I am giving them all a coat of that matte Mod Podge because these will get painted. At least the front will get painted. The back of these leaves are aging, so they kind of look bronzy. They look brown and bronzy, and that is going to be the shabby part of this chic. Yes, it is. So I'm leaving the beautiful aged metal intact. Once my Mod Podge is dry, I paint all of the leaves, the front, like I said, with that beautiful celery green. It is really, really pretty. I love it so much. And once they are totally covered and dry, I place them into their corresponding flower stems. Once in place, everything gets, you know it, you can say it, Mod Podge. It gets podged. I cover it all, every bit of it, with 2 coats of matte Mod Podge. One last thing to finish off my flower stem, I am using some dimensional paint at the base of where the flower head will go to add some, yes, dimension. I am just doing little streaks up the side of that little wood ball, and I'm going to do a little bit of detail around the base of the little wood ball, and then I will add a little detail where the leaf stem comes out of the flower stem. All this will be painted out in that beautiful green when it dries. Remember those candle cups? Now they are flower heads. And you see these little guys? I got these for $1.99 each. That's half price because there was a sale at Hobby Lobby on the drawer pulls. And how beautiful is that, acting as the center of my flower?
Everything is finished, and now all I need to do is show all of you.
So from 4 unusual candlesticks and 3 a beautiful mid-century modern, we get this. I don't think you can look at these and see anything other than a flower. I love the stems, absolutely beautiful from those old candlesticks, and you would never know that those leaves weren't always part of it. And the candle cup turned into a flower head, absolutely beautiful. You can see I added more wire stems to the center of the flower for more realism, and I put a touch of hot glue on the tip of each of those wires, painted them out in truffle brown chalk paint, then came back while still damp and brushed them out with Decor Art metallic worn penny. Here's a good look at our worn leaves along with that detail I created with the dimensional paint. You can also see where I used the dimensional paint at the base of our flower bloom. There's definitely a slight tilt to each of these flowers, as if reaching up towards the sun, and they are a little bit different, each and every one of them. Let's check in on our former Parmesan cheese shakers. There's a nice overhead view. You can see all the extra holes we created to let out more light. And our handles, they turned out so nice you would never know they were a little wood ball and 2 candle cups glued together. I think I got my wire part of my handle pretty darn straight, not bad. But those embellishments and the bases, they really make these little lanterns sing. And you wonder if you can pick them up? Let's look. There you go, working handle and all. And you're asking yourself, will they open up so that you can turn them on? Well, let's see. There's our base. There she is. You can see the little light right in the top of the candle cup. Now let's take a look at them lit. If you've watched my channel long enough, you know my motto. If you can light it up, you should light it up. And there they are, all lit. I am in a love with my little lanterns. Never ever would you guess that these were huge Parmesan shakers. Now they're beautiful lanterns that I could even hang if I wanted. I cannot wait to display these all year round. They look fabulous by themselves and with beautiful spring flowers. The metal on my handles I coated with matte Mod Podge to dull them down so they weren't so bright and shiny and would appear to be vintage. These lanterns would work in any shabby chic decor as well as any French country decor. Thanks again to Jody for bringing us together for a shabby chic spring. You're going to find the links to her channel and my co-host channel as well as the playlist in my description box below. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a like, share it with your family and your friends and anybody at all that likes DIYs, thrifting, repurposing, French country, and shabby chic decor. You can follow me on Instagram and don't forget to check out my shop on Etsy. Ring the bell for notifications of all of my upcoming videos. Leave me a comment. I would absolutely love to hear from you. Don't forget to subscribe. It is a great way to support my channel. But for now, this is Dawn with Shabby Meets Bling. Thank you so much for watching. I look forward to seeing you next time.